Hello folks, I just can't leave stuff alone, so I am down the garage again. Now, what I'm doing is the gasket for the rear main. Now, I debated whether or not I should do this for the simple reason that it wasn't leaking. And part of me thinks if it doesn't leak, don't touch it. But nevertheless, I've got everything apart. If it does leak in the future and it's quite hard and tired, the old one, then, well, you might as well do it now because it's going to have to be engine out again. So I've taken this cover off, and inside this cover was a little rubber gasket. There's a little space to punch out on these, which is quite clever. So I've checked the official procedures. It says take this off, change this gasket at the top, which I've got. I don't know if you can just about see that. Yeah, there we go. And then replace with new. Now, as it turns out, there are cheaper and more expensive versions of this gasket. The only real difference is one has an installer, which makes it easy to pop it inside. So the plastic installer. The solution to that is a proper tool. Now, I'm going to clean this up. So I'll just pop this down here for a second. Much improved tidiness in here. Well, till you get here. This is the installer. So you put the snoo seal inside here, like so. Get to the old 5-ball bolts, put it over the top, and basically wind it in. Sounds simple, doesn't it? So we'll see. So I cleaned everything up with something called Loctite 7840, which is expensive, but I find it excellent, and it's non-toxic, biodegradable. It's very, very good stuff. Quick clean up down here. Looks good. Old gasket. Looks okay. And the housing looks good as well. So let's just get this back on with the housing. I'm going to follow the correct procedure. It says once you put this on, don't tighten the bolts all the way up just yet. So I will do that. I'll just have a quick look and see what it says in terms of torques, and I'll let you know. It was at this point that I f***ed up. On the Ford instructions it says remove the top cover, which of course I didn't apply thought, I just did it. Presumably on the Ford instructions they mean on an engine that doesn't have the sump on it, because of course the moment I did that, undid a couple of the bolts, it pinged the seal up that goes to the sump, and guess what? That's never going back in. So I cut it off. I had to cut the section off at the end so I could refit that plate, ultimately having spent an hour or so mucking around trying to get it to fit. But it's not going to happen, so I fitted the seal, I used the tool, I wound that on, and it did okay. I think it's on there. I'm going to crank the engine over a couple of times just to make sure it's okay. It doesn't come flying out, because that's a level of trust that I have. I've tapped it in as well just because it wasn't quite all the way back. I wanted to make sure it was very regular all the way around. It seems to be completely home now, so yeah, there we go. You can see this is as low down as this will go, and despite my best effort I tried to make a shim to help encourage it in. It wasn't going to work, so I've got to drop the sump off again and refit that gasket, but of course I can't do that until it's in the air because it's now on the ground, and I can't lift the top part of the engine, pop the gasket back in and pop it back on, and I don't have the crane and I don't have the space for the engine stand. So all these things are a problem, but hey, that's back on there, which means I can fit the flywheel on there, which means I can fit the clutch on there, which means that when I'm done with the box, that can get back on there, and I can also work out what I'm doing with regards to the spacer plate. So I guess that's something, but there you go. Lesson learned, don't blindly follow the instructions, use your common sense, and particularly if those are the manufacturer's direct instructions, because of course they assume that everything's completely in bits. They use, by the way, these bolts 30 Newton meters is what the torque setting is. I did so look it up, and I did 30 Newton meters. There you go. Hello, I'm back down the garage again. Today I'm going to try not to cock anything up. So the rear main seal's in. I used a special tool to install it. I've just given it another tap round just for my own sanity, and I think it looks pretty good. I guess we'll find out in a moment. I have got fancy ARP bolts to go in, which were cheaper than the standard Ford ones, and I've got the flywheel on the floor ready, so I'm just going to make sure I'm definitely happy, use a bit of the lubricant. I've checked the torque settings for these bolts, which seem to be 112 according to Ford. Burton power say 83. I will double check that. And yeah, going to install those now and see where we go. I think I might stick the clutch on as well, Am I going to make things half myself or not fit the spacer plate in between? Maybe, not sure. We'll see. There we go. That seal seems to be nicely level all the way around and against the crank. So yeah, it's a little bit of oil there. The oil is from when I put it in, just a bit on the seal. Time to line this thing up. There's a little hole there. There's a little hole there. Okay, so I thought I'd have a quick look for ARP fastener torques. And went to the ARP website, and it's actually a handy page. If you type in the number on the front, it tells you what the torque's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 85, which is what I've managed to do. So, bit Heath Robinson, but held the crank against my wooden block at the end there, just supporting the engine, and everything is now torqued up. New clutch out of the box and ready to go on. Rather helpfully labelled flywheel side. It does make a difference, so if you're putting one in, make sure you just check this. And of course, just worth making sure that it all lines up okay on the splines, which it does. So tight fits, you can understand why you'd want this to be in the right place, which is why with this locating tool, we should get everything aligned, hopefully, correctly. The clutch plate cover comes with a layer of grease on it, which needs to be taken off. Helpfully reminds you inside this particular one. Let's see, inside there. We're going to be changing this as well, so that the fingers are all new, because these can get a bit tired. But yes, we're going to give that a bit of a clean up now with an alcohol wipe on this one. So I'm going to have another go at it, I think, and make sure it's nice and clean. This is obviously still not done, but here you can see how quickly it takes it off. So just make sure that's all removed so it doesn't slip around on the clutch plate. Okay, so clutch plate on, and the bolts have been and up just sort of finger tight really, opposite each other, working them down in stages, and now this will be torqued up to 29. So here we go. I forgot to mention actually that I torqued up the flywheel bolts behind and cleaned the face of the flywheel before just fitting the clutch plate. 2 hands for this one, I'm afraid. The spacer plate at the bottom of the gearbox. Now the top bit uses a CVH spacer, and the bottom bit, well, there isn't one. So what I've done is I've made a template out of cardboard, as you can see from this. You can see roughly where the bits and pieces all run. And I'm just going to cut this with an angle grinder, although not now because it's night time, to match my cardboard template, which is now pretty much transposed onto there. So there you go. Bit of cardboard aided design, or CAD. Right, that's me for the evening. I'm going to clean this up at a later point and then start thinking about connecting that up to the engine, getting the starter on, getting the earth cable on bits and pieces. I've been standing here pondering bits in the engine bay, so a bit of work for that to do. And it's got so late I've almost lost my voice. One thing I did spot, now this is the spacer plate from my original engine, CVH engine, I think. The crank sensor's down here, it goes through here. As you can see, there's a little plate here, which thankfully isn't moving. Now, I hadn't noticed that this goes through the other original spacer. It's too late now to do anything about that. The bolt undo, it's there behind the flywheel, so I'm hoping that that's adequately aligned to be able to see, or that it's not fussy enough that it'll be able to pick up from the ring okay. But I think if there's anything in it, it'll be a fraction of maybe 0.5 millimetre, but we'll see. It does seem to turn okay. Nothing seems to be catching or colliding. This seems to be okay. I think I'll be able to lift that on actually when it gets to it in the not so distant future. But we'll see. This needs to be all cleaned up, the box. I'm going to give it a go just with metal polish, see how it comes up. But once it's been thoroughly degreased, I've made a quick start, but there's a lot of work to be done. You can see in between the veins there, so I need to get the toothbrush out and give it a good old clean up, see what comes out. And then yes, I think originally I lacquered it, I can't remember now, but may well be that that's giving up, but it certainly needs a good polish at least. Yep, so there we are. This end, breather, needs to sort out pipe work. Breather from down there, I think they're the same size. I need to check, I can't actually remember, but if not, I need to work that out. And where to put the catch tank, it needs to be higher than this. I'm thinking maybe something at the back here. This, as we know, goes across there, sort of like that. So maybe behind that, if I can somehow swing it. off of here perhaps, not sure, haven't decided yet, but anyway, something here looks like it would probably make sense if I could do it, and as long as it doesn't get in the way of the pipe work for the throttle cable. I'm just trying to sort out pipe work for the inlet back to the throttle body, that is. I need to sort out the throttle cable. Yeah, there we go. I think that's it for now. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us here on YouTube and find us on the socials at UK Motor Talk everywhere.